Get my right script. This is it. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you back to full council meetings in the chamber. All legal COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted by the government today. However, we've taken health and safety advice to ensure your continued safety at meetings as far as is practicable. We have a duty of care under health and safety legislation to continue to monitor the risks of infection from COVID-19. This includes encouraging to wear face masks, which are available this evening, whilst you move around the building, screens, sanitizer, and the enhanced cleaning of frequently touched surfaces. These precautions are advisory only. We'll be keeping the doors open for increased ventilation, and we'll be using CO2 monitors this evening. We have also placed the tables with a small distance in between them to help in limiting the risk of infection for vulnerable members and officers. For the safety of members of the public, in advance this evening, we have placed additional seating in Committee Room 1. Whilst political debate is a requirement of the democratic process, I wish to remind all councillors of their duty to engage with fellow councillors, officers and members of the public in an appropriate manner, which underpins the mutual respect between parties that is essential to good local government. We move on to apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Arnold, Brackstone, Delaney, Garbutt-Moore, King, Mackenzie, Middleton, Oxley, Wass and Windress.
There are no public questions tonight. And no urgent business. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? No. So we move on to item agenda 7. Members' questions on notice. On the agenda is to receive members' questions on notice. There are 3 questions on notice. These will be dealt with in the order that they appear on the agenda. Councillor Duncan, please ask your question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In relation to the 2nd of December council meeting, can you please A, explain why you decided to act contrary to advice from the council's own health and safety advisors that the meeting could proceed safely?
A risk assessment had been completed for the meeting and health and safety instructions drafted. However, in the weeks leading up to the date of the meeting, considerable concern had been expressed by the government and their scientific advisors, including the Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty. as to the emergence of the Omicron variant. This had been identified in South Africa. The scientific evidence available at the time was that Omicron was highly contagious. Further uncertainty existed as to whether vaccinations would be effective to limit the severity of the symptoms associated with the infection by the new variant. For that reason, to ensure the health and safety of members and officers, specifically those who were deemed vulnerable, I took the decision to adjourn the meeting to a later date.
Thank you. B, explain why you stated the meeting had been, quote, cancelled when legal advice has confirmed the chairman has no power to cancel a meeting of council.
A full council meeting of 2nd of December 2021 was adjourned to a further date of 17th of February. Under common law and decided case law, a chair has the power to adjourn a meeting. Further, it is arguable that the Constitution of the Council grants the chair the power to alter the date and timings of a meeting. An alternative interpretation states that Rule 26 does not apply to full council, as it's under the heading that deals with committees. However, as a common law power exists permitting an adjournment of the meeting, it is not necessary to give further consideration to the interpretation of the Constitution, meetings and proceedings of committees. That's page 105 to 122.
C, state which members you consulted and explain your reasoning for including these members but excluding the majority.
The monitor officer rang me on the morning of the 2nd of December, and he stated that 3 of the group leaders had been in touch and asked about the council being postponed due to the vulnerability of several members of their groups. And I was concerned myself because of the Omicron variant of COVID being so easily transmitted. I asked the monitoring officer about the legality of postponing the meeting, and he said he would go away and check. He rang me back at 11 o'clock and assured me that it would be legal to postpone, and then said it was my decision. He reiterated that 3 of the group leaders had been in touch with him, which gave concerns about the meeting. At that time, we didn't know the severity of Omicron, but it had been published that it was easily transmitted, and I felt that it wasn't worth taking the risk of any of our members or staff being in contact with a potentially deadly virus. With a great deal of thought, the meeting was postponed with the very best of intentions.
D, provide copies of any emails sent and received by you in your capacity as chairman of the council, be they from members or officers, copies to be appended to the minutes.
There were no emails, all contact was by telephone.
E, confirm how much your decision to, quote, cancel the meeting cost the taxpayers of Ryedale.
The cost to adjourn the meeting was £3,042.97 for Savills for audio support and £495 for the Milton Rooms hire. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. When we met as a council on the 17th of February last Thursday, the infection rate for Ryedale was 473. On the 2nd of December, the date of the council meeting, it was 390. On October the 8th, the meeting which preceded, it was 352. Given there is no apparent public health logic behind the meetings that have been allowed and the ones that have not been allowed, can you understand why there might be a perception you did not fulfil your duties as chairman in the non-partisan and non-political fashion expected?
I think by the time it got into February, we knew more about Omicron. We knew a lot more. The science has moved on about the severity of Omicron, and that and so I really think that my decision to close to adjourn the meeting on the 2nd of December was with the best of intentions, and it was for the health and well-being of our members and staff. No other reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Potter, can you please ask your question?
Thank you, Chair. To Councillor Keel, Chair of Policy and Resources. In view of questions raised about the circa £3,500 cost to RDC of technical backup and live streaming of council meetings to comply with COVID-19 regulations, could the Chair of Policy and Resources Committee please 1. Provide a precise itemised breakdown of these costs, and 2. To inform members which costs are mandatory and under what conditions and which are voluntary? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter, for your question. The net cost of live streaming and technical support for council meetings, as is the case this evening, is as follows. £3,292.97 for audio support, and the cost of hiring the Milton rooms for the meetings was £495. Based on the health and safety advice that we have, all costs are mandatory, as we were unable to facilitate meetings at Ryedale House when we were meeting at the Milton rooms, maintaining the required social distancing in order to protect members and officers. And our in-house IT team are unable to provide live streaming of meetings due to insufficient staffing and equipment. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Potter?
No, thank you, Chair.
In that case, could you please ask your second question, Councillor Potter? Thank you.
Certainly, thank you. Again to Councillor Keel, Chair of P&R. In view of the impending elections for members of the new Shadow North Yorkshire Council, the fast approaching implementation of local government reorganisation and the inevitable concern of staff about their future employment, could the Chair of Policy and Resources Committee please inform members what progress has been made to convene the first of quarterly joint works group meetings, as agreed by full council in February 2021? This to preferably include proposed meeting dates and how participants will be decided, staff, unions and members. Will the fourth meeting of the JWG due soon, with the fourth meeting of the JWG due soon, why is this group still to meet? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Thank you for giving me notice of this question. You'll be pleased to hear that there has, despite the long delay in getting the JWG together, there has recently been the first meeting on the 14th of February. And the group is scheduled to meet every quarter going forward until the 31st of March 2023. In terms of membership, the group is chaired by Harry Rashid, Head of HR, and group leaders, senior managers, heads of service and Unison were all asked to put forward 2 representatives from each respective group. The 2 members of this council who attend are Councillor Cook-Duncan and myself. The delay was for unfortunate reasons, really. A report was commissioned following the decision of Council in April 2021 to consider the purpose and setup of the group. Meetings took place at that time with Unison, council officer managers and group leaders, and the report was completed in May 2021. Group leaders were then asked to provide 2 names of representatives in May 2021. Councillor Clark, as Chair of Policy and Resources Committee at the time, was keen to discuss details with group leaders, but unfortunately due to his passing this didn't happen, and that is what really resulted in the far too long delay in setting up this committee. HR, though, did, I raised the long overdue meeting with HR, and they continued to follow up and sent confirmation of member, then they were sent confirmation of member representation in December 2021. And following this confirmation, the first meeting was organised for February the 14th. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Potter?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I was under the impression that Council had decided that there were to be 6 members of staff, 6 members of union and 6 members involved. Is this correct or incorrect, and why is it only 2 of each? Thank you.
I think those figures were changed, Councillor Potter, after the report which the head of HR pulled together in consultation with managers and with Unison. It was felt that that size of meeting would be actually quite unwieldy. So I think that's where that decision came about. The report from the head of HR went to the Senior Management Board, and I think that's where the decision came from. And it was felt that it was appropriate for myself to serve on that committee as Chair of Policy and Resources, and Councillor Duncan to sit on that committee as staff champion.
Well, you've had your supplementary question, Councillor Potter, so I think we'll move on. Item agenda 8, we dealt with last week, and so we move on to item agenda 9. Number 9 on your agenda is at page 121 on your papers. The Treasury Management Strategy Statement, an annual investment strategy of 2022-2023. I call upon Councillor Keel, Chair of Policy and Resources Committee, to present the report and answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out the draft Treasury Management, Annual Investment and Capital Strategies, the minimum revenue provision policy and prudential indicators for 2022-23 as required by the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities and SIPFA. The Council is asked to note the contents of this report. The paper has already been seen by Overview and Scrutiny and the Policy and Resources Committee, and there was unanimous support for both, from both. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Councillor Keel? I now ask Councillor Keel to move the recommendation set out in minute 99 from the Policy and Resources Committee meeting on the 3rd of February 2022.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You have the wording of the recommendation in front of you. I can read it. It's quite lengthy. I can read it if members wish, but you do have it on your papers in front of you. And as Chair of the Policy and Resources Committee, I move the recommendation.
Is that seconded?
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bart. Does anyone wish to speak in favour or against the motion or propose an amendment? As the amendment has been moved and seconded, I'll put it to the vote. Members, please can you cast your votes now?
Councillor Joy Andrews.
For.
Councillor Paul Andrews.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Burr.
For.
Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Cleary,
4.
Councillor Cousins, Councillor Dockra,
4.
Councillor Duncan,
4.
Councillor Frank,
4.
Councillor Goodrick,
4.
Councillor Graham,
4.
Councillor Hope,
4.
Councillor Keele,
4.
Councillor Mason,
4.
Councillor Potter,
4.
Councillor Rain,
4.
Councillor Ryby,
4.
Councillor Thackeray.
4.
Chair, that's unanimous.
Thank you. So that motion is carried. Agenda item 10, minute 74, Model Code of Conduct, page 161 to 194 on your agendas. As the chair of Overview and Scrutiny, Councillor Middleton, and the Deputy Chair, Councillor Wass, are not in this meeting this evening, would the Monitoring Officer please briefly introduce this recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to present this report of the Local Government Association Model Code of Conduct for Councillors, and I seek approval from Council to adopt this as the Ryedale District Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. The recommendations are that it's recommended to Council that the LGA Model Code of Conduct for Councillors be adopted. It is subject to 2 amendments. I did inquire with the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee as to the rationale for the amendments, and I was advised that the previous Monitoring Officer, Simon Copley, had provided input into the recommendations to make slight amendments, and obviously wish to keep this in accordance with the best practice of other councils who are adopting this particular code. The amendments are in relation to replace gender-specific language, e.g. him or her, with gender-neutral language, e.g. their, and to add socio-economic group to the list of characteristics to be protected in the Equalities section. Under the Equalities Act, socio-economic group does not form part of one of the protected characteristics. However, the reason why the Overview and Scrutiny Committee made recommendations for this to be included was because they felt that as not least because of COVID, but generally, you know, with societal inequalities that are becoming more to the fore following COVID, access to resources, in addition to widening gaps caused by privilege, power and control, is why socio-economic status, in the view of our Overview and Scrutiny Committee, should be included in the section under the equalities. In terms of the language, it was felt that to have neutral, gender-neutral language such as there is more in line with what we expect as a society. So they were looking at societal expectations, and that as language so powerfully reflects and influences attitudes, behaviours and perceptions, they felt that the gender-neutral language avoids the use of words which may be interpreted as biased, discriminatory and demeaning, by implying that there was one sex or social gender being the norm. So that was the reason for their slight amendments. And, you know, it must be clear that the council can add any amendments they wish to this model code. So with that in mind, the recommendations are that this model code of conduct for councillors, subject to the minor amendments, is approved for inclusion in the Constitution as the model code of conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Monitoring Officer? No, no questions. Would someone please move the recommendation, and once it's seconded, well, it says you may make your speech, but I think, Elizabeth, you've probably said it all already, but would someone please move the recommendation? Councillor Burr.
I'll move those recommendations.
Thank you. And is that seconded? Oh, Lots of hands up. Councillor Goodrick, I think you got in first.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll second that.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak in favour or against the motion as proposed and amended? Or propose an amendment? Councillor Paul Andrews, I've got you.
Yes, Chair. I'm at some disadvantage because I brought the wrong set of agenda, which is very negligent of me. But I did look through this, and I have the following comments. When these code of conducts first came out, it allowed councils to make them very strict, and as a result, they were used politically against political opponents. But the result was, after that, after a lot of representation from a lot of councillors on a lot of authorities, a much more restrained set of recommendations came forward for a wording which was much more, I would say, less likely to cause be contentious. This one comes back to being to creating a situation which could be used politically by political opponents. For example, it contains a requirement that if you are accused of something, then you are required to cooperate with the investigation. Now, that in a criminal case, what happens is it's up to the people who are making the case against you to prove their case. It is not up to you to put yourself in a position where you have to defend a charge which has been made against you. When you so it is right to be put in a position where you have to defend it, but the prosecution must prove their case. And I see that if we go along with this, we're going to be put ourselves in a position where we're going to end up by spending a lot of unnecessary time, wasting a lot of time on matters which we shouldn't be concerned with. There are other points which make it possible for a politically controlled authority to dominate and control their political opponents. And although it is very well-intentioned, I know it's very well-intentioned, the effect of that particular paragraph, and I'm sorry I haven't got it in front of me, does cause me great concern. And for that reason, I will not be voting for this item. I would far prefer to leave the matter as it was. So if members feel that a member of the public or anybody else is making a useless charge against us, we can ignore it unless that member of the public actually proves their case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I understand and endorse the LGA's aim of simplifying the code and making it more consistent. What I cannot accept is the tagging on of what are described as minor amendments enforcing gender-neutral language and the use of socio-economic groups. Like some, I'm a little irked by mangled auxiliary verbs, tautological terms such as reporting back and forward planning, idle use of partners, issues, and the misuse of words like trauma. The use of stakeholders and postholders is enough to bring tears to the eyes of any seasoned fencing contractor. Whilst I might grit my teeth, I have, however, no wish to ban this, much less create a new offence. The example given in the recommendation this evening would enforce the replacement of the third person singular with the third person plural, in this case the possessive. Yet passing this add-on would ban me from using English correctly by way of making it an offence under the Code of Conduct. Language has evolved, certainly, and I'm not suggesting that things must never change. However, language expands with new words borrowed from other tongues or as technology requires. I've even gotten used to old words coming back into use. This requirement contracts language and misuses existing words, supposedly to reduce offence to, well, to whom? A socio-economic group is defined as people having the same social, economic, cultural, political or educational status. We've heard from a monitoring officer this evening what the rationale was for including it in, but I can't help think that it will lead to stereotyping and pigeonholing. I therefore wish to move an amendment deleting mention of gender-neutral language and socio-economic groups. The amended recommendation to read that the Local Government Association, the LGA, Model Code of Conduct for Councillors be adopted as Ryedale District Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. I've passed the wording to our monitoring officer and the clerk has the wording. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I believe I have a seconder.
Thank you. I was just going to say, is that seconded? Councillor Dockra. Does anyone wish to speak to that amendment? No. So, as mover, would you like to? As seconder, would you like to speak, Councillor Dockra?
No, I reserve my right, thank you.
Councillor Cleary, do you want to add anything?
I've nothing further to add, really. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay. So in that case, I think we'll take this straight to the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Joy Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Paul Andrews.
Abstain.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Burr.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Cleary.
For.
Councillor Cousins. Councillor Dockra.
For.
Councillor Duncan.
For.
Councillor Frank.
For.
Councillor Goodrick.
Against.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hope.
For.
Councillor Keel.
Against.
Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Potter.
Against.
Councillor Rain.
Against.
Councillor Ryby.
For.
Councillor Thackeray.
For.
Thank you. Chair, that's 10 votes for, 8 votes against and 1 abstention.
So that amendment is carried. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion or propose another amendment? Councillor Clark, did you wish to speak? I'm sorry, I missed you out. You're all right, thank you. In that case, sorry, Elizabeth, did you want to come back on that at all?
Yes, so the amended motion that has been carried now is the substantive motion. So if council could vote on approving that motion, or it will be lost. So what council is now voting on is that the recommendations is that the local government Association LGA Model Code of Conduct for Councillors be adopted as Ryedale District Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. So that is now the substantive motion. So if we could take a vote on that, please.
Councillor Joy Andrews.
For.
Councillor Paul Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Burr.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Cleary.
For.
Councillor Cousins. Councillor Dockra.
For.
Councillor Duncan.
For.
Councillor Frank.
For.
Councillor Goodrick. Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hope.
For.
Councillor Keel.
4.
Councillor Mason.
4.
Councillor Potter.
4.
Councillor Rain.
4.
Councillor Ryby.
4.
Councillor Thackeray.
Against.
Chair, that's 17 votes for and 2 against.
Thank you. So that motion is carried. We'll move on to item 10B, the appointment of external auditors. It's page 195 to 204 on your agenda papers. And again, as the chairs of the committees aren't here, would the Section 151 officer please briefly introduce this recommendation? Thank you, Anton.
Yes, I will. Good evening, all. Can I just check that you can hear me okay? Is that a yes? I can't hear.
Yes, we can all hear you,
Yeah,
Anton,
sorry.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Excuse me. So this report is asking council to approve the process for appointing external auditors. It's, as I say, it's approving the process. It's not actually asking to approve the auditors. Now, our current external auditors are in place until 31st of March 2023. And of course, after that date, LGR will be implemented. But nevertheless, we are advised to go ahead and go through the process just in case LGR is delayed. So there are two ways of doing this. Either we can opt in to the public sector audit appointments process, which is what we've done in previous years, and which all of the other councils within North Yorkshire are doing, or we can go through a procurement process ourselves. My recommendation is that we opt in to the national process, and that was supported unanimously by overview and scrutiny. So the recommendation from that committee to council was that council approve the recommendation to opt in to those arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our 151 officer? So would someone please move the recommendation? And once it's thank you, Lindsay. And once it's seconded, you may make your speech. And thank you, Councillor Ryby. So, Anton, you may make your speech.
I don't really have anything to add to that. I don't think, so I'll just leave it there.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak in favour or against the motion or propose an amendment? As the motion's been moved and seconded, I will put it to the vote. Thank you. Actually, if no one's against any of this at all, we could do it by general affirmation. Shall we do that? Okay, so that's moved by general affirmation. So moving on to item 10C, minute 97, revenue and capital budget monitoring, Q3 2021 to 2022, pages 205 to 216 on your agendas. Would Councillor Keel please briefly introduce this recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a report basically at the financial position at the end of the 31st of December 2021. The revenue budget for 2021-22 was approved by Council in February 2021, and this report, as I say, presents the financial position against that budget at the end of 2021. So it's recommended to Council that the content of the report is noted. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Councillor Keel? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is, can you confirm how much money has been or will likely be spent on the livestock market project in the financial year 2021-2022, and how and who will approve this spend?
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Although the Q3 report does say that up to 100k might be spent, and is therefore it is included in this report, nothing has yet been spent. Any spend above the 50k mark, as we know, will come to committee for approval. Sorry, what was the second part of your question, Councillor Duncan?
It was basically how and who has approved any spend or will approve any spend. Obviously, you mentioned that any spend over 50 will come to committee, which suggests that any spend under 50 would not. So I suppose my question is, how and who will approve that, and from what budget?
So yes, I've said that anything over 50,000 will come to committee. Anything under can be approved under delegated powers, I understand, by myself.
Just a supplementary, Madam Chairman, which is, again, which budget specifically will that spend be approved from? Because although it's under the £50,000, it should come from a budget that has been set aside by council, and I can't see any budget which would be available for the development of a business case. There is £1.5 million that was originally set aside, which was subject to a business case being developed. It was not for the development of that business case.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Duncan. I'm going to ask our 151 officer if he can respond to that question for me, please.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, I would prefer it if the Chair of P&R cannot answer the question. I'll prefer for a written answer to be provided by her outside of the meeting. I don't think it's appropriate for officers to answer political or otherwise questions in public. It should be the Chairman, which is where the question's been directed.
That's fine, Councillor Duncan, if that's what you would like. I think it was probably a practical question rather than a political question, but I'm fine to provide you with a written answer. Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Councillor Keel? Councillor Keel, please move the recommendation, and once it's seconded, you may make your speech.
Thank you. The recommendation is that the report is noted.
Is that seconded?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Burt.
Thank you. So the key points in this paper, as I've said, it's a factual statement that shows that the revenue budget is on track to overspend by 830,000. This is largely due to the additional COVID-19 related costs. But this is a much improved estimate since Q2, again largely due to COVID costs, which are set out in the report. The main change is down to how council tax and business rate losses are to be counted in this and future years, as directed by central government. The council is still incurring such losses, but these will not have had the same level impact in the current financial year due to a change in accounting. Instead, costs are to be spread over future years with some additional government grant to support these. The Q2 figure assumed these costs to be 0.9 million, and these have now been removed. The Capital Monitoring Report notes an expected underspend of around 0.157 million as of the end of Q3 in relation to timing of the IT infrastructure work. Elsewhere in the plan, there are some higher than anticipated costs in property condition works, mitigated by savings against programmed costs, which have been fed into the revised budget estimates. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak in favour or against the motion or propose an amendment? Councillor Burrows, seconder, would you like to speak? Did you want to come back, Councillor?
No, I have nothing further to add. Okay. Thank you.
So as the motion's been moved and seconded, I'll put that to the vote.
Councillor Joy Andrews.
For.
Councillor Paul Andrews.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Burr.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Cleary.
For.
Councillor Cousins. Councillor Dockra.
For.
Councillor Duncan.
For.
Councillor Frank.
For.
Councillor Goodrick.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hope. Councillor Mason.
For.
Councillor Keele.
For.
Councillor Potter.
For.
Councillor Rain.
For.
Councillor Ryby.
For.
And Councillor Thackeray.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So that motion is carried. Moving on to item 11A, minute 100, garden waste collection service proposer, Councillor Duncan, and seconded by Councillor Delaney, who isn't here at the moment. Turning to item 11, which was referred to Policy and Resources Committee by full council on the 13th of July 2021, where it was moved and seconded and has now come back following consideration. The recommendation can be found on page 217 to 232 of your agenda papers. Councillor Duncan, as this has been moved and seconded already, would you like to make your mover's speech?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Obviously, just a technical point at the moment, this was referred to P&R. The motion was for P&R to explore the viability of the points that were put forward in the motion. Obviously, P&R's made a recommendation not to support change, but I would like to propose some wording for debate, as has happened with the previous motions at the previous meeting of Council last Thursday. So if you're comfortable and happy with that, I'm happy to move that, and I do have a seconder, which is Councillor Dockra.
You want to move and second an amendment to this, do you?
It's, obviously, if the motion as currently written is that the council's calling on P&R to explore something, it's already done that and has reported back. So I would like to move what I believe to be, or what I'd like to see happen as a result of that exploration, which is probably the most logical way of dealing with it, because obviously we can't vote again for P&R to explore it because it's already done that. It's been there and has come back. So I have a proposal, which I'm happy to read out.
I'll just ask the monitoring officer's advice on this, Councillor Keir. Elizabeth, would you like to?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to accept Councillor Duncan's proposal for revised. Thank you.
So you said you had a seconder for this, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Dockra is the seconder. Thank you.
To end the garden tax, whereby Ryedale District Council is profiting from its garden waste collection service to the tune of circa £120,000 per year, the Council resolves to A, extend the service to operate all year round in 2022-23, and B, charge £5 less for an annual licence, so the price in 22-23 is £33.
Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Duncan? Right. So we'll move to the debate on this item. Sorry, Councillor Mason, I missed you.
Yeah, I have a question. How does that change the figures? Do we have the figures to see that? Because, you know, that's just plucking a figure out of the head.
Sorry, Madam Chair, my understanding is, I'm happy to be corrected otherwise, but that there isn't questions for people who are proposing motions. However, I do have the information that Councillor Mason's asked for, and I'm happy to provide that when I introduce the item.
I'm happy with that proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So, moved and seconded.
Chair, before we
So,
proceed, does the
sorry,
Section
Elizabeth.
151 officer have any comment he wishes to make before the discussion proceeds, please? Thank you.
So, Madam Chairman, I would like
Hang on a minute,
just the
Councillor.
opportunity
Hang
to
on a minute,
introduce
hang on a minute.
my item before comment.
The question is, Councillor Duncan, that, you know, you say you've got figures. Okay, if you want to put your figures first, and then the Section 151 officer can comment on these, because we're asking councils to consider something in terms of finances, which, you know, hasn't been considered before. So put your proposal, and then the Section 151 officer can come in. Thank you.
That was my concern. I was concerned because of us setting the budget last week, whether this would affect the budget that we set last week. So if you would do that now, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. If it allays any fears that you and the monitoring officer may have, I have received figures directly from the Section 151 officer in advance of submitting this proposal to the council, and those are the figures which I will be referring to. At this point in time, the Ryedale Garden Waste Collection Service brings into the council £121,000 more than it costs to deliver the service. It means that those people who have a garden and who use the Garden Waste Collection Service are not just covering the cost of collecting their green waste, they are subsidising other council services. When the Garden Waste Collection Service charge was introduced, the idea was to recoup the costs, and there's potentially good reason why that was introduced at the time. But what has happened over the course of time is that the price, as I have mentioned, the money that's coming in outweighs and more than covers the cost of providing the service. So it is in effect a tax on people who use the service. What is more, the service does not run for 12 months of the year, it only runs for 9. It does not run in December, January and February. The proposal that I'm putting forward to the council this evening, of that £121,000 subsidy, that would be reduced by £36,000 if the service was to operate all year round in 22-23, and it would reduce the profit of £121,000 yet further by £62,000 if the charge of £5 less for an annual licence was put forward. It means, therefore, that there would be a surplus left of just £23,000, and while it would be possible to potentially lower the annual licence fee further than £5, it's felt that the best way of making sure that we can address any rise in demand, any additional new licences, is that there is a surplus remaining of that £121,000, albeit a significantly smaller surplus than what is currently recouped by the council. And the reason for putting this forward is that I believe fundamentally it's wrong that we are charging the public for a service, and that service is costing more than what it costs to provide, and therefore is subsidising other council services. I believe that to be fundamentally wrong and a departure from the original justification for introducing the charge. So the proposal that's on the table recognises what I perceive to be this unfairness and tries to do something about it, not just with the charge, but also with extending the service so that people can dispose of their garden waste throughout the year. I believe this to be the fair and the right thing to do, and I hope, Madam Chairman, that Council can support it.
Thank you. I would just like to bring Anton in, if you're there, Anton. Could you just explain to us how this will affect the budget or
Sure.
the figures that Councillor Duncan's given us? Thank you.
Yes, so Councillor Duncan has given the figures that that I spoke with him about, which the two changes, doing the year-round service and reducing the amount that people would pay, would reduce what's shown in here as a surplus of 121,000 by around about 100,000 or so. That 100,000 reduction wouldn't change the budget because the budget's already been set. What it would do is you'd be agreeing to overspend on that budget. So as we did the Q reports during the next financial year, you would see that immediately as an overspend, which would be funded from reserves, unless council wanted to allocate reserves now specifically to cover it. The risk is that in reducing the charge, that demand changes, and that's not something that we can predict. And of course, if demand changes because more people want to take it up, that may mean additional costs, both in terms of vehicles and in terms of employees. So there is a risk on the face of it. It looks like it could come within that 121,000. Which contributes towards the overspend on street scene, I should say, as well, because street scene as a whole is overspending, as you'll remember from Q reports. There is a risk, so it becomes a decision for members whether they're willing to take that risk and note that that amount which will overspend could increase further.
Thank you, Anton. We'll now move to debate on this item. Councillor Joy Andrews.
Thank you. I too agree with Councillor Duncan that the 121,000 that is been taken from the brown bin collections, we always said that it would be at cost. I can't, however, agree to the proposal for the all year round collection. I think from an environmental point of view, sending the lorries up to the top of Rosedale for probably 1 or 2 bins for somebody who's maybe done something dramatic to the garden in the depths of winter would be a waste of time and fuel. We've already seen fuel rise today, and I would imagine it's only going to get more. So I think the costs over the collection of bins of whatever colour or description over the next year will be at a big cost to the council anyway. I'm not opposed to reducing it, but I would need to be a little more convinced on that one, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
I think I echo Councillor Andrews' points. As a user of this bin service, I'm pretty sure that we don't use this bin between November and January. I'm not sure many people do. I find this part of it rather wasteful, if I'm at all honest, in both fuel and capacity of staff. I do have a question for Anton. Is when were these figures produced? Were they figures produced before the huge increase in fuel prices, and has that been taken into account for current figures?
Could you possibly answer that, Anton?
Yes, that's a fair point. That's based on current costs. So when I say current costs, the figures were looked at probably in the last sort of six to 8 weeks. So there is a risk there of increased costs.
Thank you. Councillor Burr.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Whilst I understand what the mover is trying to do, and I, of course, with everyone in this council chamber, believe in fairness, I haven't got a problem with the money because obviously what has been proposed is self-balancing. But what I have got a problem with is this over-promising and under-delivering potentially? At the moment, as we all know, all our staff are working so hard with the local government reorganisation imposed by us, by the government. I can't understand really how much more pressure we need to put on our staff. Now, as we all know, we're losing staff left, right and centre to other places, etc., because they're just so worried about their jobs, their mortgages, their life, etc., etc. The fact that if we actually do implement this, it means that we will have to have more staff to actually deliver this. This will cost more, which we haven't budgeted for, and I'm not sure that we can actually deliver what is being requested. I don't think that the facts really are in front of us and they haven't been evaluated if we can actually deliver what is on the table. So it sounds absolutely applaudable, but as I say, I'm not sure that we can actually deliver it. As has been said by the 151, certain costs, etc., for an extended delivery haven't even been factored into this. So I am worried and quite concerned about the delivery aspect that this council could not live up to.
Thank you, Councillor Burr. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I pretty much echo everything that's been said so far. We had a very good debate about this in P&R and covered all the various options available, and this is pretty much a combination of a couple of the options. So while I agree with Councillor Andrews that originally the whole brown bin collection was supposed to run at a zero profit, and we would have liked to see it done so. So I don't really approve of the fact that it had moved into profit. But it was during the debate at P&R, it became quite clear that with a year to go of this authority, it wasn't a particularly good time to be testing this out and messing about further. And I think we changed the budget quite considerably last week, and losing another 100,000 from the budget is not a sensible thing to do. In particular, I mean, as Anton said, there is a distinct risk, but in particular, extending to a whole year-round service, I just see as an absolutely ridiculous idea, not more so than the fact that that's what we did to start with, and it exactly proved that it wasn't worthwhile because there wasn't enough stuff in the bins to make it worth emptying. As Councillor Andrews said, sending bin wagons up to Rosedale and the other remote parts of our district is not sensible, it's not sustainable, it's not environmentally friendly, and it is very expensive. Certainly the year-round idea just doesn't stack up. So I'm afraid we won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillor Ryby.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sort of kind of staggered really that we should want to increase the collection of garden waste. I think we've forgotten the world we live in and the conference we had in Edinburgh. I thought some years ago we were encouraging composting of garden waste, and that recycles to be so you don't purchase petrochemical fertilizers for your garden. So I would think we should be discouraging people from having garden waste collected. We should make it less attractive financially. In other words, instead of making it cheaper, it should be dearer, just on the environmental grounds alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryby. Councillor Paul Andrews.
Yes, Chair. I mean, first of all, I'm a bit confused by the council rules, because Councillor Duncan has had Anton commenting and helping him assisting him in answering his questions, but he didn't allow Councillor Keele to do the same in the questions and when answering her question. And I mean, quite honestly, I think Councillor, both of them were right, and it was right to ask the officer to comment on a matter that the member didn't have a right immediately to hand. But the additional point that I would like to make to this debate is to do with who we are trying to help, and I think generally speaking, most people who have gardens are quite happy to pay the charge. But when it comes to things that really matter to those less fortunate than most people in this district, are people, for instance, the young mothers who have who have children and who end up by piling loads of nappies and that sort of thing into green bins over Christmas. Now, now on many occasions, I have suggested that this council agrees to have weekly green bin collections during the school holidays, which would help alleviate real distress. But this council has turned its back on that, and so I'm surprised that Councillor Duncan is moving, or perhaps I shouldn't be surprised, that Councillor Duncan is moving to help those of us who are quite happy to pay this charge, but has never supported proposals that I've made in the past to assist people who really need assistance, like those young mothers and families of very young children who are really struggling, and they struggle even more in the school holidays, and they end up by loading their bins, and some of them feel that the only thing they can do is show their disgust by littering the roads with their rubbish. That is my additional point, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Goodrick.
Thank you, Chairman. Some of my colleagues in this room will remember this charge being introduced, and I think at the time I was very reluctant to support it, but I supported it on the basis that it would not charge the residents more than it costs to deliver the service. So I think Councillor Duncan is quite right to look for that £5 reduction on the rate for the delivery of the service. It was always meant to be a cost-neutral service, and so I can support that part. The bit I struggle with is the bit between the times when we're not doing the collection, because frankly, those times are exactly the times we should be composting and not putting the wagons on the road to make long journeys to collect very little. And I seem to remember this council ran a scheme for compost bins, and they should be being used. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Goodrick. I'll just say from the Chair, if this proposal, if this amendment was carried, I think we would need more wagons, we would need more staff. It's been said that there's £100,000 profit, but we've already asked Anton, and the fuel prices have gone up already, so that'll have cut that down. And if they go up again, we'll probably end up being either cost negative with this. I think that's a possibility. So I think we need to be very careful with this one. We actually have had no complaints at all from the public about our service. And so if it ain't broke, I would have said, don't fix it. That's my opinion anyway. So no one else wishes to speak, so I'll go back to Councillor Docker a second. Or do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. I'd just like to say, I think I can't justify us making a profit out of any service that we provide. I think it's morally wrong, and I think it needs to be reduced by the £5. Whilst we say that people don't use the bins in the winter, certainly I think people do. I remember you saying last time, Chair, that cutting the grass at this time of year was madness. We've actually cut ours twice since Christmas, but we're fortunate enough to have the composting. We also compost all our vegetable peelings and all our vegetables that we've grown or whatever. And I think actually people would be more encouraged if they could, that can go in the bin. And then it does encourage people to do it if the bin is available, rather than have its, the early part of the year, it can get quite smelly if it's been sitting there for 3 months. Thank you.
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Manager. Just before I respond to the debate, I was going to make a suggestion which, if members think it's useful, obviously I feel passionately about the two parts of the motion that I put forward, but clearly there are some people in the room who are saying that they would like to support the £5, but they don't want to support the all year round. It would seem to me logical that if an amendment was moved by somebody else, not me and not my group who do support the principles that have been put forward, that would allow potentially then for there to be a vote on the first part or the second part, and for the £5 reduction to go forward, rather than just simply saying, well, we can't support one part, we're going to vote against the whole thing. I just wanted to throw that out there and see if there was anyone who wanted to do that. If not, I'm happy to explain and reply to the debate.
Thanks, Councillor Duncan. Can I just ask, Elizabeth, can I just ask you if that amendment's been put, do we need to vote on that and then put another amendment?
We should, technically, yes, we should. So if we vote on the amendment as put with the two parts, and then if that amendment is not carried, then some other councillor can put the amendment with just the £5 part, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, I just wanted to, just on that advice, it's been, obviously I proposed and it's been seconded a motion that's on the table. If that motion is voted down, the motion is lost. It cannot, no further motion, as far as I can understand, can be put forward. What I was suggesting is the motion that I've proposed and that Councillor Dockra has seconded, that if a member wanted to move an amendment which was to delete Part A, which is the 3 months 3-month extension, that would then be debated and voted upon. If that was passed, then obviously only Part B would remain. If it failed, then Part A would remain. We'd go to the vote from that point. There may well be a next amendment. So the option I was putting on the table was simply if another member wanted to move an amendment, I'm not sure if they do, to delete Part A, then that might be a way forward that would allow people who want to support part of it, the Part B but not the Part A, to do that. It was a suggestion. If it's going to make it more complicated, I will just reply directly to the debate.
Yeah. My understanding is that if an amendment's been put, that amendment must be voted upon before you can put another amendment onto the table. Would you like to come in on that, Elizabeth?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Only one amendment may be moved and discussed at any one time. No further amendment may be moved until the amendment under discussion has been disposed of. So we have to deal with the first amendment, and then if that is lost, then another amendment can be made.
So we've got to go to the vote on this.
Just one point of clarity was that, and this is hopefully for everyone's benefit, I have not moved an amendment. I have proposed and seconded a motion, which is what we did at the last meeting of full council last Thursday. There was a number of motions on the table. We went straight to the proposal from the committee, for example. At one point, I've proposed a motion that's been seconded. There is not an amendment on the table at this time. I was simply suggesting someone might wish to move an amendment. So a motion's been proposed and seconded at the moment. There is not an amendment on the table. So what I've just introduced is not an amendment. It is a motion. Therefore, I was suggesting that someone might wish to move an amendment. They might not. That's a caveat that I put on that.
Yeah, point of order.
Elizabeth, just a minute, Councillor Andrews. Elizabeth?
Would it not be simpler, Councillor Duncan, if you just withdrew your motion and then another councillor could put a new motion with just the £5?
Given, I don't think that would be simpler. It's not something I'm willing to do. It's been proposed and seconded as the motion. I gave the option for people to move an amendment. No one's taken that up yet. We've got slightly bogged down in process, which is unfortunate. So what I'll do is I'll reply to the debate, and we'll have one opportunity, unless someone wishes to move an amendment to that, to vote on this. If you're happy with that, Madam Chairman.
Chair, I'm happy to move that amendment.
Sorry, was that you, Councillor Mason?
It was, yeah.
Hands all over the place again.
Yes,
point of order, Chair. Point of order.
What's your point of order, Councillor Andrews?
Well, I mean, I can understand Councillor Duncan coming in with a new motion, but it's not a new motion. It's an amendment to the previous motion. What his amendment is that I must substitute the motion that was on the table for the motion he was now putting forward. If it's an entirely separate motion, Chair, we should have had notice of it first. This is my understanding of understanding of the rules. So therefore, Councillor Duncan's motion has got to Councillor Duncan's amendment, the original amendment, has got to be discussed first. And then if somebody wishes to move another amendment, or Councillor Duncan wishes to move another amendment, he can do so.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Elizabeth, would you come back on that, please?
I would agree. I would agree with that. I think it is an amendment to the original motion, and I think we need to dispose of that first before we consider any other amendment.
Right.
Madam Chairman.
Just hang on a minute. Councillor Goodrick, you've had your hand up for a very long time. I'll just bring you in and then I'll come back to you.
Madam Chairman, and I'm sorry, I'm looking for clarity. So my understanding is that a motion has been put forward to reduce the waste collection charge by £5 and extend the period of time to collect that waste. What we are now looking at is a member proposing an amendment to the motion. Now, if a member proposes that amendment, then we debate the amendment and vote on it, and then we go back to the substantive motion as amended if that's what council chooses to do. Please, can the monitoring officer clarify that, please? Because I'm getting very confused about what is the right procedure.
We're all quite confused, I think. Yes, Elizabeth, can you come back on that? Thank you.
That's right. But if we go back to the original motion, Councillor Duncan has put in an amendment to what the original motion was, because he wants to reduce the sum of money, and he wants to have 3 months extra. So we need to deal with that. That is an amendment to a motion.
Madam Chairman, at the last meeting of full council, Councillor Andrews moved a motion on the consultants directly. It was not an amendment to his original motion.
We aren't dealing with that right now.
No, we aren't. I'm saying
we're dealing with this one.
It's the same process.
Excuse me, we're dealing with this now. Elizabeth's ruled that is an amendment to the original motion.
Chairman, I must come back. I do have a right to come back.
Councillor Andrews, don't interrupt, thank you. I'll come to you when I'm ready.
But last week we did have an enormous amount of amendments. So although we have in the Constitution about the amendment, and I do consider that Councillor Duncan has made an amendment to a motion, if Council is happy to agree, and you as Chair are happy to agree to the proposal put forward that another amendment is made to this, I would be happy to accept it for the purposes of moving on with this debate. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, could I just clarify?
Just wait a minute, Keane, just wait a minute. No, I'm all right, thanks. So the original motion, I consider the original motion has been amended because you've added the sorry, I'm losing my voice. You've added the £5 and the extra 3 months to what was to the original motion.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, the point is what I put forward is definitely different to what was originally proposed. But what myself as proposer have put forward and Councillor Dockra has seconded is a motion. We have not proposed and seconded what is on the front sheet of the agenda. We have proposed and seconded different wording on the same topic based on what's come back from P&R. That precedent was established many councils ago but was used at the last meeting of full council when Councillor Andrews proposed a different wording than what was on the front sheet of the agenda and was agreed at that time to be the most expedient way of dealing with things. There is no amendment on the table at the moment. There is a motion that's been proposed and seconded, which I've read out to the council, and I was simply suggesting that someone might like to move an amendment. If this a complicated thing significantly, or it just sounds like Councillor Mason did want to put forward that amendment, there seems to be a misunderstanding here on, I have to say, I think everyone in the room is quite clear, to be totally honest with you, I think what's going on. I have put a motion forward. I have not put an amendment forward.
Chair, I must respond to that.
Wait,
No,
Councillor
Chair, please.
Councillor Andrews, just wait a
my
moment.
My name has been raised twice or so on, and I've been accused of doing something which I did
Councillor
not.
Councillor Andrews, I can't have people just shouting out.
All right,
please,
but please,
please
Chair,
just wait.
give me a right to reply.
If you put your hand up, I will come round to you eventually. Switch your microphone off and we'll sort it out. I really think we've got in a complete muddle again on this council with this item, and so I'm just going to say that we'll just have a 5-minute break, and we'll try to sort it out during that 5-minute break and see if we can't come back to the council and come with some agreement. Thank you. 5 minutes. Okay, right. I've made a decision on this, and I consider this to be an amendment to the old motion. And so we're going to go to the vote, and we're going to vote on the amendment, and then move back to the substantive motion.
Madam Chairman.
So I've gone to the vote.
Sorry, Madam
now.
Chairman, I was able to respond to the debate, first of all. I have that opportunity, according to the Constitution, to reply to the debate, which I've not yet done. I also did just want to make
For your
another
amendment?
Point. Well, Madam Chairman, the motion has not been proposed and seconded, as far as I understand. So I can't move an amendment to something that has not yet been proposed
Yeah, it was
and
proposed.
seconded.
It was already proposed and seconded at P&R.
It proposed and seconded at P&R committee.
Yeah.
But we're obviously now at full council, Madam Chairman, and we have to propose and second things here. The point I wanted to make was a 13.
Look, we're getting really bogged down with this, and we have the rest of the agenda to go on. Now, if you want to speak to this amendment, which I've decided this is an amendment to that motion, it's my decision.
Well, Madam
I
Chairman,
am the chair of this committee. I am the chair of this committee. That's my decision. If you wish to speak to it now, and then it's going to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, I'll speak, Madam Chairman, which is to say that I cannot speak on a supposed amendment that I have not put forward because the motion has not been proposed. What I was trying to explain was 13.7 of the Constitution, which I'm sure you're aware about, which is that a member may alter a motion of which he or she has given the notice with the consent of the meeting. The meeting's consent will be signified without discussion. I think the meeting has consented to what I put forward, which means what I put forward is the motion. And I was suggesting that there might like to be another amendment to that, which was to delete part of it. But what is on the table now is a motion, and I'll speak to the motion. If you're going to continue taking it as an amendment, then I can't go along with that because that doesn't make sense in line with the Constitution. But I'll speak to the actual substance of the issue. There was a couple of things that have been raised.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I'll just check with Elizabeth again.
Chair, can you clarify, has it been seconded?
We are
seconded. Councillor Dockra seconded.
Councillor Dockra didn't second an amendment. She seconded the motion.
So is this amendment or is it an emotion?
You've ruled, Madam Chairman, just now quite sensationally that it's an amendment, but I'm saying to you it is a motion. And as given I'm the person putting it forward, I would feel I should have a little bit of say.
Thank you. We'll go to Elizabeth. Thank you.
Yes, let Councillor Duncan have his say. We are considering it to be a motion from the original motion that went to P&R. So, yes, he has a right to respond to that. Yes.
So I did say, did you want to speak?
Yeah, so just for clarity, what I've put forward now is a motion. No one has amended it. I'm now responding to the debate and then we will go to the vote. If Steve wants to amend it, I'll give way to Steve to move an amendment to my original motion, which everyone in the room, I think, is happy to accept as being, at least for easiness, as being the motion.
I would be happy to accept that, Chair. If that is what the other councillor wishes to do, I would be happy to accept that.
Can I just ask about the timescale? Did we not have to put a new motion in before 12 o'clock today?
No, if the timescale is fine. If the other councillor wants to make the amendment, I think we'll accept that is the amendment to the motion.
Yeah, I'd like to amend it to delete the extra time of the runs to keep the service as it is, but with the £5 reduction.
Okay.
So delete the line that Keane has put forward on the extra time.
Thank you. So we are now speaking to this amendment to the motion.
Second the amendment, please,
yes.
Chair?
Councillor Goodrick.
Sorry, Chairman, I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now, does anyone wish to speak to that amendment?
I don't think there's any point from me, Chair.
Councillor Duncan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to respond to some of the issues that were raised previously about the extension by the 3 months, some of the comments that were made, and why I do think it's important that this does happen. Clearly, we've got one more year of Ryedale District Council left, so anything we do, in effect, is treated as a trial. because we can only do something for one more financial year, because that is the length of time which we're going to exist for. And I think it would be sensible to see what demand there might be. Obviously, in the course of the debate, you mentioned, Madam Chairman, that there had not been a single complaint raised to the Council about the garden waste collection service. But I would just like to point members to page 86 of the agenda papers in front of us. On the budget consultation, you will see one response from the public which states the garden waste service ends too early. This year my last collection was in mid-November when leaves were still falling and gardens were still growing. All final collection should have a December date. That's page 86. I also want to point you to page 87, which points to the poor brown bin system is poor, with it ending far too soon before all the leaves have fallen. And page 88 has a similar comment as well. That's just three that I can refer to at this immediately, Madam Chairman, where we have had comments from the public who are saying that they want this service to continue for longer than it currently does at the moment. Now, clearly, if we do this for a year and we find out in December, January and February that there isn't the demand there, then the new authority might make a judgment or a decision that they don't want to provide the service in those months. They might also decide that they don't want to provide the service at all. We have to remember this is not a statutory service which local councils have to provide. They may decide that they want to offer the service for free. They may be mandated by the government that they have to provide it for free, which has been mentioned. They may decide they want to charge 100, 200, 500, whatever pounds a year for the service. That will be their prerogative. But this year, of Ryedale District Council, we do have the opportunity to do something, one, to address the issue of the profit that we're generating unfairly, I believe, and also we have the opportunity to try out and see what demand there might be. And we might debate, well, we've had 3 comments here, that's just 3, everyone else might say they're happy, we just don't know. The other issue was raised about whether it was possible to do it, and you'll see in the agenda papers in the report that's been provided, option 4, the head of Environment and Waste does make clear that this can be delivered this year, this financial year. The cost will be £36,000, and it can be done. That's clear and has been raised in the paperwork, and I'm happy to refer to the reference, which is page 223, option 4. That can happen. I believe it should happen, even if it is just to see what demand there might be. But there clearly are some of our residents who are dissatisfied with the service not being provided for 12 months at the moment, and I really hope that it can be provided for those 12 months. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. And just to say that I did say there were no complaints. I asked Becky about whether there had been complaints about the garden waste, because I thought it was prudent to find out. In 2019-20 there were 2 complaints. In 2021 there were 5 complaints, but in 21-22 there were no complaints, which is what I said. There were no complaints about it this year. Right, where am I going to now? Councillor Mason.
It's now turning into a trial. This is new. I thought it was a service we were going to provide, but now it's a trial. So how are you going to assess the results on this? But from what you've just said there, the complaints, are we really willing to go for £36,000 worth of service for the sake of 6 people, I think, who complained in the past 3 years? That seems to be really, really bad economic sense, which I'm quite surprised about, to be honest. I'm more than happy to support the £5 reduction, but not on the extension, just based on 5 complaints that you've had, 3 that Keane's had, for £36,000 extra money from council coffers. I think that's a bad use of taxpayer money.
Councillor Thackeray.
I would just like to say that I have no idea what the complaints were. For all I know, it could have been the shade of brown of the bin. I'd also like to point out that the word refuse and refuse are spelt the same.
Councillor Ryby.
Thank you, Chair. We seem to go round and round in circles more and more. I don't understand why we want trials. We kind of running the council down. My previous comments were very basic about composting and this sort of thing, and I listened to several councillors saying we need to encourage composting, but in the garden itself. It's good garden husbandry to do it, but no, we want to spend money to collect 12 months of the year and make a profit out of it, arguably, or not make a profit, but and blow fuel and fumes into the atmosphere, which we all say we want to reduce, but no, on a principle, we want to put loads more trucks on the road, cart more stuff around and move it back, sell it back from the waste, and they buy it and all the rest of it. It's just absolutely stupid as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely stupid. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryby. Councillor Goodrick.
Thank you, Chairman. I said when this motion came up that I had always believed that the garden waste service should be cost neutral, and I think it's quite right that we reduce the annual fee by £5, and that's as far as I'm about to go. With regard to leaves in gardens, you know, if you collect leaves and put them in black bin bags and poke holes in the bin bags, you get the most fantastic leaf compost, which is for your garden. And that's what we should be encouraging our residents to do, particularly in the wet months when all the leaves are on the ground. So I can go with the £5 reduction because it should always have been a cost-neutral service. And that was the reason I voted for it when it came at inception. And I will stand by that commitment that I made then. But that's the only thing I'm prepared to do, Chairman. So I hope Council supports the £5 reduction, but doesn't support the extension of the service for the reasons I've said. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Goodrick. Councillor Joy Andrews.
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't changed my mind on the all year round collection, and the £5 reduction, although I mean, like everything, I think this would be retrospective. I think it had to be a year-on-year thing. If we made a profit one year, we reduced it the next, and if we made a loss, we had to increase it. We don't have that option. Things are uncertain at the moment, especially with fuel, etc. And if we do reduce it this year, there may be a bigger take-up. And it's whether we've got the staff and the bin lorries. I'm quite aware on social media sometimes we have issues with bin lorries, etc., breaking down, and I'm just concerned that if there is a big uptake on the collection of the brown bins on top of the fuel, etc., that even if we do reduce it, we may be running this service at a loss this year, and we don't have next year to recoup that. So I don't think I can support either the amendment or the motion, but I would like to go back to the original motion and that came from P&R, where we discussed this at length and still didn't get any answers that were, I think, able to come to a satisfactory conclusion on. So it's going to be really complicated, this voting, for the next few minutes, but I can't support the Councillor Duncan's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're at the moment talking about the amendment, not the original motion. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just talk about the amended amendment to the motion that was amended. Starting off with back on the all year round collection, consultation responses are one thing, formal complaints are another. Only 36,000, yeah, that's plus the fuel increase. This is just a trial. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I said this before, this was actually trialled when we first did it. It was run all year round, and we found that there wasn't a demand for it. So why are we trialling it again? Is there going to be a different demand for it? I think not. A couple of years ago, I would have certainly gone with the cost neutral thing, because that's how it should have been. With a year left for Ryedale District Council, local government reform in action, we're losing staff. The staff that we have got plenty to do. Do we really want to start messing them about anymore? Do we want to hand over yet another extra 100,000 deficit to the new authority? That's very kind, particularly coming from county councillors. And finally, I think the people who are paying for brown bins are the people who can afford it. This isn't the people who are really skint. So let's knock off another £5 a year. That's going to make a big difference, isn't it? That's similar to the £5 a year that the saving that I referred to last year, when hundreds of pounds a year in energy costs, national insurance costs, hundreds of pounds a year, inflation and all the rest of it, and we're messing around with the odd fiver here and there just for the sake of disrupting our staff yet more. No, I'm afraid this is too last minute, and I can't even support the cost neutral thing, even though I would have done had it been ongoing for Ryedale District Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillor Rain.
Just forgive me, but I'm not sure what I'm talking about, whether it's an amendment or a motion or anything. But I think we've been discussing this extra all year round collection, and we're actually forgetting what Anton actually said regarding being, you know, the knock-on effect if, as many people have said in the room, that we can actually end up with more uptake and then people leaving, and just financially, I don't know if maybe I can ask Anton to describe, say again what he was talking about this, because to me it's very important, and I think everyone's forgotten what Anton actually said about this, how much, you know, we have to be so careful because we don't know what is going to happen fuel-wise and everything. So that's just what I would like, if possible, Anton, to remind us what he said, because we've gone on round and round in circles. If it's not possible, that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Chair, can we ask Anton to clarify the impact of the amendment as well? Of this amendment, the one about my amendment, please. So so keeping the service as normal, but at £33.
We are really going round and round in circles with this, and it's just getting bogged down more and more and more. We can discuss it all evening, and then we'll have to have another council meeting, or we can get to the point and get to the crux of the thing and get to the vote. Anton.
Madam Chairman, we have started the political debate, and I think there was an opportunity for Anton to comment. I think he's commented, and I think this is for members to make a decision on at this point. Will be my point of view. The amount is £36,000.
Not necessarily, because of the rising fuel costs, and if we need extra wagons and extra staff. Anton.
Councillor Duncan's correct. I think the £36,000 is the cost of doing it all year round, and then 62,000 was it is the cost of reducing it by £5. So both of those together add up to 100,000. So you can see the difference. I think my point was simply that that's the cost as we know it now. It doesn't take into account the cost of any risk of increased take-up of the service. So I think we don't have a figure for that. Members just need to be aware that although they may be agreeing to an overspend of 36 or 62 or a combination, it could actually be higher than that.
Thank you, Anton. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There are the two elements of this motion. The reduction in costs so that we don't make a profit out of this, so that it is cost neutral, which is something I support absolutely. From my own experience in my ward, people don't actually they say, well, I'm surprised that the council makes a profit, and they think that £5 is that the £5 reduction, although it would be well received, it's actually the annual, all the way through the year, is something that they would really appreciate. So I do support both elements of Councillor Duncan's motion, and I can't, in following my ward members' requests, support the amendment. I mean, I'd be tempted to allow council to undertake its promises, its pledges, and not make a profit. I'd almost be tempted to go with the amendment, but I'd be going against my ward members' requests. So I can't support, however much I'd like to support a compromise, I can't support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burr.
Thank you very much. So we're talking to the amendment now, and I support 100% that we don't make a profit. But I would like to ask the mover of the amendment what facts and figures he has got that we can actually deliver this if there is a bigger take-up. Because that's my problem. My problem is that it's not about the money, it's about if we overpromise and we can't deliver. We haven't got the staff, we haven't got the vehicles. So if you could just give me the facts and the figures of why you've put this amendment forward and how much it's going to cost, etc., then I can consider it. But without that, at this moment in time, I can't consider it.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
The amendments put forward basically on the figures I was looking at. Key mentions 36,000, and I think as I understand it, after his motion, if we accept his motion, there'll be 21,000 left in profit. I think I heard that figure somewhere banded around. The £36,000 to me just seems absolutely ludicrous, spending that for a 3-month service that I genuinely think will be a waste of money and to have as a trial. And as Councillor Potter has said, we've already trialled that 3-month period. There doesn't seem any point in doing it again. That's the reason why that it's been tried before.
Chairman, my question wasn't answered. It was about the delivery costs.
Well, we don't have the delivery costs for all of it anyway. Keane's got the delivery costs. He's already told us the delivery costs, what it would cost over the year. He's told us what the savings will be, £36,000 if we continue it. So we will be saving £36,000.
If the price of petrol doesn't go up and if we don't need more wagons.
There's a lot of ifs and ifs and ifs and ifs and ifs. It's if we're at war next week as well. So, you know, how many ifs do we want in this council
meeting?
A
very lot of ifs. Councillor Goodrick, as the seconder, would you like to speak? The seconder of the motion, would you like to speak?
Well, forgive me, Chairman, but I did think I'd already spoken, but just for clarity, I do think it's right that this should be a cost-neutral service, and even with the £5 reduction on the rate, it's still not cost-neutral. There's still over £20,000 give in the budget, which should or could take up any extra uptake, and on top of that, I think the cost of reducing the service to £33 was about £62,000. So even if there's an extra uptake, there is still money in the budget to cover that. And I do believe when this was first moved by this council, however many years ago it was, I made it very clear that I wanted this service to be a cost-neutral service, and I stand by that commitment that I made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. As the mover of the amendment, would you like to speak, Councillor Mason?
I think we've covered everything.
So do I. Now we'll go to the vote.
So, Madam Chairman, to respond to the debate.
No, we've gone to the vote, Councillor Duncan.
I've got the chance to reply to the amendment under the Constitution, Madam Chairman. I have the chance to reply as mover of the original motion.
You do. Could you make it quick, please? Because we've already
I've just wasted 30 seconds arguing with me about whether I could move. Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. So, sorry.
Carry on.
Sorry.
Okay,
thank you, Madam Chairman. I will continue. It's been mentioned, a couple of points I want to raise. The first one was about encouraging people to compost. Absolutely we should, but clearly there is demand for this service. People want they want this service to be provided, and I think if we take on board that argument, then potentially if you extend that forward, we wouldn't provide this service at all. That I don't think is something anyone's proposing, but if we are truly serious about encouraging people to compost, the easiest solution potentially would be not to provide it at all. That could have implications, obviously, for fly tipping, which was, I think, the original concern raised when we did introduce charging originally before I joined the council. It's been mentioned about this being a trial. The reason I use that word is because we have 1 year left of this council. Everything we do, in effect, is a trial because we can't control anything beyond the 1st of April 2023 when we cease to exist as an authority. The other point that was raised was that we will be spending money to collect this for 12 months. We would not be spending money. We would simply not be... This money has been raised from the payment that people have paid to the council for the service. We are not using general taxation money here. We are using the money that has been gained from the service that people are paying for a 12-month service. We have to remember the money we are talking about, this £121,000, this £36,000 of that is not council taxpayers' money. It is money that people have paid for a service which coincidentally we are, wrongly I believe, generating a profit from. So this is not about money, it's about the costs that we've charged people. There was mention about knock-on effects, that this could generate further uptake. I see that potentially as being a positive thing. If we're collecting the green waste and we're recycling it, we gain income from that as an authority as well. So I just wanted to reply to those key points, and I think this really is about the principle and also responding to concerns that have been raised that this service is not provided for 12 months. I believe that it should be, at least for the next year, and then it's for the new council to determine from there. And I would like to request, Madam Chairman, a recorded vote, and I think I've got 3 people who are happy to support that.
So we are going to the vote now. We're voting on the amendment, not on the motion. So on the amendment, Councillor Mason, would you like to just remind us what your amendment was? I'm sure everyone's forgotten with all this time.
The amendment was to delete the line. Which line was it, Keane, please?
It's little a.
Delete the line little a on the timescales that we keep the service as is, not to increase the service to 12 months. So delete little a, basically.
And little a reads, extend the service to operate all year round in 2022-23.
Yeah, delete little a.
So deleting that. Right. Is everyone clear on what this amendment is? There are people shaking their heads.
I don't have little a on my paperwork.
Because some people are shaking their heads, I think we're going to have this motion in writing. Could you write your motion down, please, Councillor your amendment down, please, Councillor Mason.
Can I have the motion in writing then, please? Because otherwise, I'm relying on what Keane's saying verbally.
I've only got one version, Madam Chair. I'm happy to tear it up and give it to you as chairman.
Thank you. Do that. Thank you.
Just bear with me.
Chair, could you read it for us, please?
Just going to do that. Just hang on a second. So we are going to delete little a, which is extend the service to operate all year round in 2022-2023. And your amendment is to delete little a. So we are voting to not extend the service. Yes. So we need to vote.
Chair, could you read out what the amended motion is now, so that the councillors can vote on the amendment, which then becomes the substantive motion. So if you could just read out to them what it is they get in full with little a deleted, please. Thank you.
Okay. To end the garden tax whereby Ryedale District Council is profiting from its garden waste collection service to the tune of £120,000 a year, the council resolves to A. Extend the service to operate all year round in 2022-2023. I've just been asked to read out the motion that Councillor Duncan put. This is the motion that Councillor Duncan put.
But without little a, Chair.
Without little a, so that councillors know what they're voting for. So read it out without little a on the bottom, because that is being deleted and voted on, so that becomes a substantive motion.
Right. I'll start again. The motion proposed by Keane Duncan and seconded by Claire Dockerer to end the garden tax, whereby Ryedale District Council is profiting from its garden waste collection service to the tune of £120,000 a year. The council resolves to charge £5 less for an annual licence, so the price in 2022-23 is £33.
So if people want it to run for 12 months, you would vote against this. If you want it to run for the 9 months it currently runs, you would vote for this.
Is everyone clear? Anyone not clear? Right. We shall go to the vote.
Councillor Joy Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Paul Andrews.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
Against.
Councillor Burr.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Cleary.
Against.
Councillor Cousins. Councillor Dockerer.
Against.
Councillor Duncan.
Against.
Councillor Frank.
For.
Councillor Goodrigg.
For.
Councillor Graham.
Against.
Councillor Hope. Councillor Keel.
For.
Councillor Mason.
For.
Councillor Potter.
Against.
Councillor Rain.
Abstain.
Councillor Ryby.
Abstain.
Councillor Thackeray.
Abstain.
Thank you. Chair, that's 6 votes for, 10 against and 3 abstentions.
So that is lost. So now we'll go back to the original motion. I'm still not too happy.
Yes, so the recommendation, so we go back to the original motion and we vote on that.
I'm happy to wrap up the debate, Madam Chairman, and go to the vote if you would like me to. Oh.
Chair, I think I would...
Just stop interrupting, please. So, I'm just going to ask Elizabeth, would you read out what the motion is now after we've voted down the amendment, and then I'll ask Councillor Duncan to speak to it, and then we'll go to the vote. Thank you.
The motion now is the recommendation. It is found at page 217 of the agenda paper. So that's what Councillor Duncan has got to speak to now. So he's just said that he is prepared to do that. So I think we need to let Councillor Duncan proceed.
Okay, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep this very brief. I think there's two questions here. Can this be done? The answer is yes. An options appraisal has been done by the head of Waste and Environment, who has explored 5 different options, several of which were not viable, 2 of which were viable. 1 was no change, which we see to be, I think, unfair. I think there's a consensus across the council, across political groups, that we should not be profiting from the service. So I see that doing nothing really is not a fair option for us. The second option was that we could extend the service for 12 months. That is possible. That's been confirmed at P&R verbally and also in the report that this can be done in this financial year. We do have the equipment and the resources and the people to make this happen. So it can be done. The second part is, should this be done? And I think it's important to reference that we are generating £121,000 worth of profit for a service which originally all we wanted to do was cover the costs of providing that service. We are now profiting. I see that to be wrong. I think, as I've mentioned, there is across the council a feeling that that should not be the case. And what the proposal does is provide that 12-month service, but also reduce the price by the £5, which I think is a much fairer situation. It does still have that small surplus that's been generated, which hopefully will allow for the increased costs that have been referenced as a concern by members and also potentially increased demand. But should we do this? Absolutely, yes, we should. I think if there is a feeling across the council that the current situation is unfair, we should try to correct that unfair situation and end the garden tax as best as we can, given the variables which are outside of our control and the concerns that we've got. But there seems to be a consensus across the council to do this. Therefore, I hope that we can do it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I have clarification from Elizabeth? Because she's just mentioned on page 217, which I've got a paper copy, we're not actually looking at the recommendation from P&R, which was to basically do nothing, just carry on. We're actually voting now on the recommendation, on the motion that Councillor Duncan brought to this meeting. I need to know that that's right, because she did mention just now that it was on that's in our papers, and it's not. It's on the one that's been brought by Councillor Duncan this evening.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's correct. Yes, apologies, that's correct.
Yeah, thank you. So we're voting for all year round collection and a £5 reduction. I'm just making it clear.
Yes.
Okay.
And could I request a recorded vote, Madam Chairman? I think I've got
Is
3
everyone
people.
clear? Right.
To say, I know you've made your decision, but I'm going to have to put levy of protest because we haven't actually had an opportunity to discuss Councillor Duncan's motion at all. What we've done is we've discussed the amendment, and I for one would have liked to say something about the entire motion, but I can't now. You made your rule, and I do protest.
But we have talked about it for an hour and a half now, so I've put it to the vote. Thank you. We'll vote now.
Councillor Joy Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Paul Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Burr. Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Cleary.
For.
Councillor Cousins. Councillor Dockra.
For.
Councillor Duncan.
For.
Councillor Frank.
Against.
Councillor Goodrick.
Reluctantly against.
Councillor Graham.
For.
Councillor Hope. Councillor Keele.
Against.
Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Potter.
Against.
Councillor Rain.
Against.
Councillor Ryby.
Very much against.
Councillor Thackeray.
Against.
Chair, that's 5 votes for and 14 against.
Thank you. So that motion is lost. Elizabeth, could I just ask, do we need to go back to the substantive motion?
Yes, we do. Yes.
I'm happy to concede defeat, Madam Chairman. The motion has been lost.
Thank goodness for that.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I appreciate that. We are pushed for time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I thank you as well, Councillor Duncan. Let's move on. So we're moving on to item 11B. Turning to 11B, which was referred to Policy and Resources Committee by full council on the 18th of February 2021, where it was moved and seconded and has now come back to the back following consideration. The recommendation can be found on pages 233 to 238 of the agenda papers. Councillor Keel, as this has been moved and seconded already, would you like to make a mover's speech?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. As members will see from their paperwork, this has come back from via the Flood Management Working Party to P&R and is now back to Council. So it recommends a change in the wording, which you also have in front of you, which says it is recommended that Council agrees a contribution towards Yorkshire Water's permanent scheme for Norton of 20% of the total scheme cost to a maximum of 152,000, based on total costs of 760,000. This funding will be allocated within the capital budget 2022-23. So yes, that is the recommendation. Do I need it seconding at this point, or can I just carry on, Madam Chairman? Can I just carry on because it's been
It's already been moved and seconded.
That's fine.
So
Okay.
if you make your mover's speech, thank you.
Lovely, thank you. I think various comments have been made about this proposal. I hope it is not going to be a difficult one for members to agree to. Obviously, the original motion was asking for a lot more money, but a huge amount of work has been done on this proposal, and Yorkshire Water have come forward with a proposal for a scheme, which does reduce the cost to this council quite dramatically. But it will make and so it's a much less amount, but will have a huge impact on the properties in Norton and the residents who have been very regularly threatened by flood water in the Norton area. It will protect up to 517 properties, and it will go towards funding a permanent pumping station, which will help alleviate the surface water and the sewer flooding, which is on what is called the dry side of the flood defences. Members will note that although the responsibility for the scheme does lie with Yorkshire Water, Ryedale District Council's contribution will make a significant difference in, to use a pun, pump priming that project and hopefully move it towards completion in the same way as this council has supported other flood alleviation schemes in the past by making a contribution. It is the same amount in terms of percentage as we are currently contributing to the Malton and Norton flood alleviation scheme that is ongoing at the moment. And to note, for members to note, the contribution will not exceed the figure that has been quoted. Members, this is really the last piece in the flood alleviation jigsaw in Norton. The problem that it'll help out to sort out resulted from the original flood scheme, which, although it's excellent and protected Malton and Norton for many years, it does trap water on, and in Norton's case, sewage on the wrong side of the defence. The pump that Yorkshire Water are proposing will click in automatically in the same way as the one on Mill Beck does when river levels are high, and prevent overcapacity in the drains discharging into the street and putting homes and businesses at risk. Sewer flooding is probably just about the worst type of flooding that anybody has to face. I'm not going to go into detail on what floats around when it occurs, but safe to say it is disgusting and it's a health hazard. The motion was agreed unanimously at the Flood Management Working Party and at P&R, and I hope that will be the case tonight as well. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to debate on this item. And Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I could never have supported the original motion on the basis that we are not a flood risk management authority and we don't have the money thereof. However, this is a completely different prospect. As Di just said, sewage flooding is the very worst sort of flooding. It's the sort that keeps people out of the houses for usually years. Not only that, but it's particularly dangerous. Yorkshire Water pretty much wash their hands of responsibility for sewage flooding. But there are two aspects to sewage flooding. One is the capacity of the combined sewers that are years out of date, decades out of date, and the other is the amount of surface water that goes into them and overwhelms them. Now the prospect of this scheme from Yorkshire Water means that it doesn't do anything about the capacity of those sewers, but it does do something about the amount of surface water, and therefore it is very important. They've put the proposal forward, and as we said, this should pump prime actual action on doing this. It should hold their feet to the fire to make sure that they don't back out of it. So it's of great benefit to the people of Ryedale, particularly Norton. It gets Yorkshire Water doing something at long last. It actually has potential savings to the council in terms of officer time and cost. So everything about this is a positive. So we very much support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thackeray.
Yes, having had considerable experience with Yorkshire Water, I would like this council at some point in the future to allocate £500,000 to pursue Yorkshire Water into the courts and fine them for the criminal act of the escape of sewage, which is under the auspices of the control of waste, the regulation of a controlled waste. Yorkshire Water is committing criminal offences all over Ryedale, all over Yorkshire, and for some bizarre reason, our government is letting them get away with it. The Environment Agency are the equivalent of a toothless dog who can do nothing except yap and bark whenever it's going to rain and tell us all it's going to rain. So at some point in the future, I would like us to bring forward a motion before this council disappears to take Yorkshire Water to task for all the crimes that they have committed over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. The first point was just to clarify. What's been proposed and seconded by Councillor Keel is that the recommendation that's come from PNR, which would be the easiest thing, I think everyone agrees on, or is it what she originally submitted to the council and therefore we need to amend it? If it is the PNR, then that suits me, but I just wanted to double check that was the case.
Yes, that is the case as it says in the papers, Councillor Duncan. It's the amended recommendation.
So that's fine. So the motion on the table is page 235, as is written there. So that's fine. As first of all, I wanted to say, obviously, as a member representing Norton, I agree with action on flooding, and I've seen firsthand the effects that flooding has had, not least last year as leader of the council, dealing with some of the issues which we had in Norton and Moulton, the highest river levels that we've seen on record. I was able to see firsthand the issues affecting properties in Norton and in Moulton. Just turning to what we're deciding this evening, I think it's worthwhile just referencing that there was this call to much great fanfare and publicity in February last year for this £2.5 million to be urgently committed to permanent pumps in Norton. We've come back now 12 months later with a proposal for just £152,000, which is, I think, something like 6% of the figure that was asked for. The original motion call asked for immediate talks and immediate action, but it's taken 12 months to get to this point. And the scheme, which was originally proposed, which was £2.5 million, has been cut to just a third of that cost. I suppose the questions that I've got is, in terms of these negotiations with Yorkshire Water, why are we now coming back to council when the call was for £2.5 million just to be submitting £152,000 of Ryedale money? And also, why is a scheme that was proposed for £2.5 million in total now just £760,000? What's been missed? What's been taken out of that scheme? What's missing? And also, how serious is Yorkshire Water's intention to actually make this scheme happen? Is this just simply a nod to the motion that's being put forward, or is it actually something that can be delivered in a reasonable time frame? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think this is a... I think we need to commend Councillor Keel actually for tenacity shown here, and I think we all know the commitment that Councillor Keel has given to this for years and years and years, and I'm pretty sure, from what I believe, is probably the only Northern council that really has committed so much of her life to this. I have to echo Simon's point. Sewage in the rivers. You know, I hope this is the first step from Yorkshire Water. I was just flicking through today, and obviously we heard about sewage in rivers a few months ago when the Conservative government voted against measures to hold the water companies to task. So I went through their map today and just had a look at what sewage is coming into our rivers at the moment. And on Welham Road, we have nearly 30 days of sewage in 2020 was poured into the river just off Welham Road. We have in Swinton 6 days constant sewage pouring into the river just down near the Rye. In Kirby Misselton, and I will have 2 more, don't worry, I'm not going to list the whole village. Kirby Misselton, there was another 15 days of sewage pouring into the watercourses there. And in Broadby, pick Broadby, thought I would, there's 8 days in 2020 of sewage still pouring into the river. You know, that is disgraceful, and I hope this is the first step that Yorkshire Water take to actually address the sewage in rivers, and I do hope that this Conservative government actually start listening to what residents want. They don't want crap in our rivers.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Ryby.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support the motion that Di has put forward. However, I would like to comment about the situation that's been discussed before, some 2 years ago, perhaps when Councillor Duncan was the council leader. And my simple suggestion is it's not going to stop Yorkshire Water dropping sewage into watercourses, but it would stop flooding. You know, it's a simple equation as far as I'm concerned. The watercourse that runs through Malton and floods is 60 foot higher than where it discharges south of York. And the Environmental Agency refuses to eliminate vegetation. That's all it needs to take out and you wouldn't get flooding. Not an expensive situation. Councillor Duncan's remark to when I made that comment before was it was too technical for him to understand. However, there you go, I will support this motion.
Councillor Goodrick.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I am going to support the motion, but I do want to put on record that the record of Yorkshire Water in dealing with sewage in our rivers is disgraceful. There is absolutely no doubt that we should not be using combined sewers, and that sewage needs to go into a dedicated sewage system so that the water that comes off and is dealt with in the combined system is just water and not sewage. And on top of that, Yorkshire Water needs to get a handle on the number of illegal discharges it makes, and it permits itself to make those illegal discharges. And having had this problem in Scrangham when I was member for Derwent, and I got the Yorkshire Water there and got them to do the repairs that they'd made, it was quite clear to me that Yorkshire Water are ambivalent about this situation, because their view is if it's flood, it's diluted. So I think Yorkshire Water need to hold themselves to account. On top of which, all the sewage which is coming down the River Derwent flows into the lower area of the River Derwent, which is a special area of conservation which has a European status, and it's absolutely disgraceful that Yorkshire Water are allowed to poison that system. Thank you, Chairman.
Totally agree with that, Councillor Goodrick. Yeah, it is quite disgusting. Councillor Thackeray, you have spoken before, so I'll just give you a very, very little amount of time, and then Councillor Andrews. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just would like to clarify for the benefit of all the members here that whilst Councillor Mason mentioned the government not increasing the onus on the water companies. The irony is that the law already exists to prevent water companies from depositing sewage, and it has existed in having been gone to the Supreme Court in 2013. It is the illegal deposit of waste on land. Ironically, also applies when it's waste in water. It doesn't require any additional change to the law. It simply requires that people like Ryedale District Council with the money in the pocket do one vital thing: break up the cabal, break up the ring. Do not sit in the same room with Yorkshire Water, the Environment Agency, North Yorkshire County Council, the police, because it is a cosy cabal, and Yorkshire Water spend more money on PR and, well, I won't use the word, but people that sweet talk and yeah, just you can't hit anybody with a stick when you're that close to them.
Thank you, Councillor Thackeray.
And just latterly, sorry, I think we're talking about £152,000, are we here? Is that correct? Yeah. £152,000 from Yorkshire Water. In September 2021, for depositing sewage in water, Yorkshire Water were fined £150,000. That gives you some indication of the measure of intent of Yorkshire Water. It's not even half the boss's bonus.
Chair, this is chickens come home to roost. Now, Mrs. Thatcher, who is regarded as a saint by many members of the Conservative Party, privatised the public utilities and said that the result would be so much better. The service would be so much cheaper. Look what we got. We got water companies taken over by foreign enterprises. Some of them actually owned by foreign states, and they make money and they give it to their shareholders instead of investing it into the business. And then when it comes to obeying the law, they ignore it, knowing that their Conservative brethren will not take legal action against them, and it's a great pity. I mean, I seem to remember that the suggestion that we should take legal action has been before this council before, and at that time, of course, it was totally Conservative controlled, and it was knocked on the head straight away. I think it's time that we remembered that we are not here to serve a political party. We are here to serve the community. Officers are here not to get on well with other authorities. They are here to do what we want so that we can be seen to be serving the community. And on that basis, I thoroughly support Councillor Keel's motion. I think she's absolutely right. But I would call on everybody to just drop the politics and drop what their own political party feels, and to actually work together and, if necessary, take legal action against people who are breaking the law. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to say that I was supporting absolutely everything that had already been said until Councillor Paul Andrews spoke, where he said put the politics aside immediately after slagging off a completely different authority, including a Conservative government that had to act on European law in terms of privatisation. Let me go back to what I was going to say. Following on from my friend Councillor Thackeray, yes, a cabal. Let's remember why the EA was founded, why it was brought into existence. Its raison d'etre was to keep water companies in check. That's what it's there for. So I quite endorse what Councillor Thackeray said entirely. I'll be supporting this, but I think it's only the start of action that we need to take as public elected members. Thank you.
Councillor Mason, you've already spoken once, but you're waving and waving, so I'll give you... You don't need to now. Thank you. Councillor Joy Andrew. Sorry? Oh. Di, did you want to add anything? Did you want to speak?
Just briefly, yes, just to respond to a couple of things. Say thank you to members who I think on the whole have been very supportive of this motion, which is much appreciated by myself and a lot of other people in Norton. I couldn't agree more with Councillor Goodrick. The issue over waste, foul water drains and clean water drains is something that I think Yorkshire Water is scared to even discuss because they know it would run to billions and billions. But yes, it is at the core of a lot of the problems. Councillor Potter referred to the emergency response. Last February, there were sort of across Malta and Norton, I think there were 27 pumps. By having this permanent pumping solution in Norton, hopefully that is going to massively reduce and it will make a huge difference to those residents who might be able to sleep easy in their beds at night. Just in response to Councillor Duncan's comments, just echo what he said at P&R about this being launched in a fanfare. I think motions are often launched and proposals are often launched in a fanfare. I think I've actually seen some done by him as well. But with reference to the amount that was in the original motion, I think it's tribute to the amount of work that's actually been done by our officers, working very closely with partners in order to bring this amount down to a reasonable amount for this council to contribute. And I think our officers should be commended for that. And I believe at this stage, I wouldn't have said this 2 years ago, that Yorkshire Water is serious about this, but I think they are very serious about it now. And I have every intention to keep lobbying Yorkshire Water, as I have done for many years, to make sure that this happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keel. So now we'll go to the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Joy Andrews.
4.
Councillor Paul Andrews.
4.
Councillor Burr.
4.
Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Cleary.
4.
Councillor Cousins. Councillor Dockra.
4.
Councillor Duncan.
4.
Councillor Frank.
4.
Councillor Goodrick.
4.
Councillor Graham.
4.
Councillor Hope. Councillor Keel.
4.
Councillor Mason.
4.
Councillor Potter.
4.
Councillor Rain.
4.
Councillor Ryby.
4.
Councillor Thackeray.
4.
Chair, that's unanimous.
Thank you. So that motion is carried. We move on now. Item agenda 12 was done last week and item 13 was taken last week. So we move on to item agenda 14, appointment to outside bodies. The appointment to appoint a representative to the Milton Rooms Management Committee. The vacancies arisen following Councillor Garbutt Moore's decision to step down from his role. Are there any nominations for the position? Well, Councillor Duncan.
It's not to make a nomination, it's just to say, Madam Chairman, this council has agreed to give £500,000 of taxpayer money to the Milton Rooms. And I feel, while there's no one from my group who has registered their wish to do it, I do think that someone should be there to represent the council, given the £500,000 that's been committed. And I wondered if, given Councillor Burr put the suggestion forward, if she'd like to maybe provide some oversight to the funds that have been committed by the council after her request.
I think that's Councillor Burr's decision to make, Councillor Duncan. I don't think we can press this position onto anyone. And as there are no nominations...
Let Lindsay reply first.
Councillor Burr.
Since my name's been mentioned, for many, many years, I was the chair of the Milton Rooms and have spent many, many years and hours in the Milton Rooms. I think that it would be really, really good from someone from the Conservative Party to actually be on the Milton Rooms and just know how great they absolutely are. So I'm more than happy to second someone from the Conservative Party.
I don't think this is really a political a political position. Councillor Andrews, did you wish to speak?
I'll let Councillor Dockler speak first, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Dockler.
I'll put myself forward for the role.
I'm happy to propose Councillor Docker if she wishes to do it.
Thank you. And Councillor Burr said she would second someone, so...
To second Councillor Dockler.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Duncan, please make your move of speech.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't wish to say too much other than I do think it's important that given the amount of money that the Council has given, which must be more than we have given to any venue in many, many decades, I think it's important that we do have some sort of voice and oversight on the committee. Obviously, it's been mentioned it would be good to have a Conservative representative on there, although the chairman of the Milton Rooms Committee is not there in his role as a councillor or as a Conservative. Clearly, he is a Ryedale District Councillor and happens to be a Conservative. Councillor Dockler, I'm happy to propose her and put her forward, given the fact that I do think we need to have a voice that represents the council and taxpayers, given the amount of money that we've given as an authority. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Do any members wish to speak in favour or against the nomination? Nominations been moved and seconded, and no one else wishes to debate it, so we'll now move to the vote. Can we do it by general affirmation? Is anyone against it? General affirmation. Okay. Moving on. Councillor Dockler, you've been appointed to represent to the Milton Rooms Management Committee. Item 14B is to appoint a substitute to the North Yorkshire and York Spatial Planning and Transport Board. The vacancy has arisen following the resignation of Councillor Raper, and are there any nominations for the position? These jobs are not popular tonight. So, no one wishing to take that position. I assume we can then leave it open and see at the next meeting. Am I correct? Am I correct in that, Elizabeth?
Yes.
We can leave it open and put it forward again at the next meeting and see what happens then. Thank you. So item 14C is to appoint a substitute to the Safer Ryedale delivery team. The vacancy has arisen following the resignation of Councillor Raper. Are there any nominations for the position? Councillor Potter.
I propose Councillor Joy Andrews.
Thank you. That's seconded by Councillor Burr. Are there any other nominations? No. Councillor Potter, will you please make your move of speech?
I don't think I need to say any more.
Thank you. Do any other members wish to speak in favour or against that nomination? Councillor Cleary.
Thank you. Very briefly, I couldn't think of anybody better. I'd be very happy to support Councillor Andrews.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll now move to the vote. Can we do it by general affirmation again? Splendid. So Councillor Joy Andrews, you've been appointed as substitute to the Safer Ryedale delivery team. Item 14D, to appoint a substitute to the Community and Police Constitution Group for Malton and Rural East. A vacancy has arisen following the resignation of Councillor Raper. He was very busy when he was here. And are there any nominations for the position? No. So again, we'll have to leave
Chairman, if there is no other person who's interested, I'll do it.
Is that seconded? Yep. And third and fourth and fifth, okay. Are there any other nominations? Obviously not. Councillor Andrews, as you nominated yourself, will you make your mover's speech?
No, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do any members wish to speak in favour or against the nomination? So can we put that to the vote, and can we do it by general affirmation? Yeah, lovely. Councillor Andrews has been appointed as substitute to the Community and Police Consultation Group for Malton and Rural East. Item agenda 15. To agree a change of date for the April full council meeting. The meeting will take place as scheduled on the 7th of April in this council chamber. Item agenda 16 is to receive a committee level decision made under urgency powers as required under the Constitution. Designation of interim monitoring officer. This decision has already been made. The purpose of inclusion on the agenda is for transparency. And just to note,
Madam Chairman,
agenda item 17.
Could I ask a question on that, please, just for clarity?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's sort of in two parts, but the first part is just for everyone, so we're all clear. What was decided, I understand, is that the appointee be designated as interim monitoring officer from the 1st of Feb until such a time as a permanent appointment is made to the head of corporate governance role. Can I just clarify if a permanent appointment has now been made to the head of corporate governance role? That's the first part of the question.
Okay. This is just to be noted. It's just to note this, and there'll be a written response sent out later.
Okay. The second part, well, there's a follow-on to that.
This is just to note, Councillor.
No, I understand.
It's not to be
I just want it.
debated.
It's obviously to note it, and if I need to note it, I need to understand it. And on that basis, are we currently advertising for this post? Was the next part of my question. And the third part of my question is: there was an advert that was posted, and the salary that was advertised was between £60,000 and £65,000. But in the pay policy statement, which we had at the last meeting, the pay for the monitoring officer is 51,198 to 56,074. Clearly, that's between £5,000 and roundabouts £10,000 more for the advertised role than what we were agreeing at the meeting, or supposed to agree at the meeting last week. So it's just a query as to what the pay and the was, and whether the pay policy statement
noted tonight, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Duncan,
Thank you,
This
Madam
is just
Chairman.
to be noted tonight.
I've asked my questions. I hope to get a response. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You'll get a written reply. It's just to be noted tonight. Thank you. Agenda item 17. Any other business? There is no urgent business, and that concludes the business for this evening. And I declare the meeting closed. And I hope you all have a safe journey home. Thank you.
Chairman, that the acoustics was a great improvement on our previous meeting place. Thank you.
Thank you.